It's the end of the Premier League season. Tottenham Hotspur have finished in 5th position. A great improvement on last season's 8th when we had the country's best goal scorer still with us before his move to Bayern Munich. And I think it's fair to say, from my opinion anyway, Ange Postecoglou has done an incredible job. Yes, there is a corner of the Tottenham Hotspur fan base who think that because he lost 4 games in a row and 5 out of 6 towards the back end of the last few months of the season, that maybe he hasn't got what it takes. But I think he's been faced with a lot of different pressures, a lot of difficult moments, including injuries and suspensions. And I think above all and everything, he has changed the mentality. He has changed the style of play. And he has come in having no experience at this elite level of management in the Premier League. And he has made Tottenham a better club to support. It's a lot more fun to be a Spurs fan now than it was this time a year ago. And that is enough for me. That's what I'm going to say. Welcome to today's episode of the Spurred On podcast. I'm going to be giving a kind of post-match review of the Sheffield United 0 Tottenham Hotspur 3 victory yesterday, a kind of routine, comfortable performance in the end. And also, there's been quite a lot of Spurs news coming out already to do with transfer dealings especially. And at the back end of this episode, I'm going to tell you what my plans are for the summer in terms of keeping you up to date with regular football content. But guys, do give this video a like, do press subscribe if you haven't already, and if you haven't gone over to the podcast platforms, do please go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give me a subscribe or a follow there and a rating. It all really helps me bring you daily content. Let's get into it then. So it was Sheffield United 0, Tottenham Hotspur 3 yesterday, a sunny afternoon in Sheffield. A lot of fans were saying to me last week, oh, this will be typical Spurs to lose to Sheffield United, the worst team in the league, on the last day of the season, allowing Chelsea to finish above us. But what I was saying to them was that I felt incredibly confident, and that is because in the last 2 seasons, we had won 5-0 at Norwich on the last day when we needed to go there and get a win to secure top 4 in Conte's first season, and then last season we won 4-1 away at Leeds, both relegated teams, just like Sheffield United were. And I thought really we would just play comfortably and make it easy for ourselves, and we did that. A few little surprises, obviously. Decky Kulusevski playing in the false 9. That's something that's been tried out a couple of times in the last few weeks. And, well, you'll have heard me, if you're a regular listener or viewer, you'll have heard me start to have a few doubts about Decky's position at Tottenham Hotspur because of his kind of transparency, the transparency of his play when he plays wide right. He's also been tried wide left. That didn't really work, but I quite like him in that false 9. He's got that kind of strong centre of gravity, what I always call his like big butt, where he can back into players, and opposition defenders find it very difficult to get the ball off him. And he is a great finisher. That first goal yesterday really proved it. Incredibly tight angle from the left-hand side. Gets it all the way across Fotheringham, who had a great game. And then his second goal yesterday as well was kind of the classic Ange ball goal. As I've said so many times since I went to that open training session at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier this season and saw just how much they were practicing that move into the centre, back out wide to the byline, cutting it back with a goal scorer coming in from the middle or the back stick, and that was what Decky did, getting up good positioning there. So he's impressed me there, and that offers us another option. As we know, Ange really loves players who are, they can play in lots of different positions, and Kulusevski is certainly one of those. So maybe a few weeks ago I was a little bit on the negative train about Kulusevski, but now I think about it, especially with Europe coming up, Europa League, which there are going to be loads and loads of games because of the mad new format, 36-team league, I think it is, and we play 8 games in it, 4 home, 4 away, all against different clubs. Plenty of opportunities for players who can play in different positions across the park, and I think Kulusevski is one of those who will stay at the club. And in fact, later on in this episode, I'll be talking about some of the rumours that have come out already just today, Monday, about the players who would be let go if a bid came in that was deemed good enough, and Kulusevski is not on that list. Other things that impressed me yesterday, of course, Pedro Porro with another beautiful strike. It was laid back beautifully to him from Brennan Johnson, another player who's been getting some stick from Spurs fans who expect everything to happen straight away, but he's a young player with a big transfer fee, a lot of raw potential, and he's got, I think, now 10 assists this season to finish with, more than any Arsenal player had, for instance. And a really excellent return for me. He's been doing exactly what Ange has asked him to do. Get to the byline and get those cutbacks in. And he's done really well. But Porro's strike was beautiful. It came from a few chances in a row from Spurs. A bit of ping-pong in the box. A decent save from Fotheringham again. Then laid back from Johnson. And Porro just put his instep straight through it. And it was past Fotheringham before he even knew it had been struck. Beautiful stuff from Porro. I think he can just go from strength to strength next season with Destiny Udogie as well. And if we get that kind of real enforcer, number 6, who can also play football, then I think that will really help those fullbacks as well, because they're kind of caught in between two stools at the moment. Obviously, Ange wants them forward as much as possible, but they must know, especially Udogie, I'd say, that a lot of those goals that we've been conceding have been coming over his head on the left side when he's caught upfield. So if we get that brilliant number 6 in that I expect us to go for, someone like Palhinha, or more likely probably someone we've not really heard of that much from Europe that Johan Lang has picked out, then I think that'll help those fullbacks go from strength to strength. Other than the kind of one missed header, bad kind of header across in his own half right at the start of the game yesterday, I was very impressed once again with Radu Dragusin. A real leader, got a real bit of bite about him. But what I was most impressed about him yesterday was his ability on the ball, bringing it out from defence and really muscling through, using a bit of pace and a bit of strength to kind of break past the final line of Sheffield United, kind of giving a little 1-2 out wide with Mickey van der Ven, I think it was, and then running all the way through. I was very impressed with Dragusin yesterday, and long may that continue. He wrote a nice little Instagram post about how much he's enjoyed being at Spurs and how it's like a family, and getting those minutes at the back end of this season I think will help him in the long run. Van der Ven, I think, had another good game on the left, just showing what a brilliant player he is wherever we place him. Really, really love Mickey van der Ven, and he thoroughly deserved his Player of the Season, Spurs Player of the Season award. There was a little bit of angst, wasn't there, amongst the Spurs community about the fact that Big Ange brought on Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and Emerson Royal before Mikey Moore and Dane Scarlett yesterday, thinking that at 3-0 up it was the perfect time to give Moore and Scarlett some more minutes, if you excuse the pun. I think it's one of those ones where Ange was just showing respect to those senior players yesterday. I don't expect either of them to be at the club come the beginning of next season, but he knows that Mikey Moore and Dane Scarlett will get far more minutes in the future. And also, it was quite an aggressive game. Sheffield United were fouling us a lot, and I think he probably thought maybe that's not the right atmosphere and physicality of game to bring on someone like Mikey Moore, who's still young and still growing. So I didn't mind the fact that he brought Royal and Højbjerg on. I thought it was a good opportunity for them to say goodbye to the fans, say goodbye on the pitch. And like I've said in the last week or so, if we can get anything above kind of 10-15 million pounds for those players, let's let them go somewhere where they will suit the style of football a little bit more. So let's get on to some transfer gossip that's already come out today. Paul O'Keefe, really reputable journalist who is on Twitter, go and follow him. He says that Callum Hudson-Odoi, former Chelsea winger, now Nottingham Forest, is interesting us. This is no surprise to me. He's had a brilliant season at Forest, cuts in off the left beautifully, pacey, so comfortable on the ball, really high ceiling in terms of his potential and what talent he has, and a brilliant finisher. And of course, Nottingham Forest, one of those clubs who, if the rumours are to be believed, will need to sell and make some money before June the 30th to get through the profit and sustainability rules. So, of course, Tottenham once again sniffing around Forest, just like we did last summer with Brennan Johnson. Apparently, Hudson-Odoi does have a big sell-on clause with Chelsea, because he only went from Chelsea for about £2.5 million, £3 million, I think it was in the end. Let me know if that's not quite right, but that's what I've read. And it was only a season or two before that Bayern Munich had bid something massive to try and get Callum Hudson-Odoi from Chelsea, like 40 million, something like that maybe. And Chelsea said no, and in the end, Hudson-Odoi, I think maybe, I don't know if sulking is the right word, but he definitely wasn't playing many minutes for Chelsea after that. Maybe he wanted to get his move. Chelsea didn't let him, and in the end, they had to let him go to Forest for a small fee up front, but a big sell-on fee. So, if Spurs do go for him, then Forest will want to recoup as much money as they can, knowing that then they have to give a lot of it on to Chelsea as well. I like Hudson-Odoi. The only worry I have is just that what I just mentioned, really. If he's not the number one first-team regular, if he's sharing minutes, say, with Sonny on the left-hand side, will he be, as up for doing that like he had to at Chelsea? Or does he need to be like the first name on the team sheet? In which case, Forest is a great club for him because he is absolutely their best player alongside Morgan Gibbs-White. So that's the only worry I have on that one. I do really like him as a player and it does interest me. He certainly would suit Ange Ball. Let's see what happens with that. As ever, not a surprise that Levy is sniffing around the clubs who need to sell. And that's why that Conor Gallagher rumour is coming up again. Apparently his contract negotiations have totally fallen by the wayside at Chelsea. He's only got 1 year left on the contract now, so they will be potentially looking to sell him before June the 30th. So let's see if Tottenham are willing to push the boat out and get 2 young English talents in before even pre-season starts. That could be interesting. Next bit of information, not probably a surprise to anyone. Spurs did have a year option on Ryan Sessegnon's deal, but they have chosen not to take that, and therefore Ryan Sessegnon will be leaving on a free this summer. What a talent that boy has, but his inability to get on the pitch due to his injury problems, mostly hamstring issues, means that he will be a free transfer this summer. It'll be interesting to see who picks him up, because if they can get him playing, if they can get him on the park, and they can get his confidence back up. He really lost his confidence due to those injuries at Spurs. If they can get his confidence back up, he really is a great talent, and it's such a shame it didn't work out at Tottenham. We put a lot of money into that player, big outlay, but as with a lot of those signings we made around kind of 2019, 2020, Ndombele, Gio Lo Celso, not working out. And that's why Spurs have had to completely change their recruitment team and really do it in a more data-driven way. And unfortunately, this just hasn't worked out for Ryan Sessegnon. But I really hope it does, because I like him as a boy, I like him as a player, and I think he has a lot of talent. Mentioned Pierre-Emile Højbjerg earlier. Apparently, he has 5 clubs from across Europe interested in signing him this summer. So I don't doubt that kind of 10, 15 million pounds mark will be hit, I would have thought. And Højbjerg will get his move. He's been a good servant for the club. He was far more suited to playing under the likes of Mourinho and Nuno and Antonio Conte than he was for Big Ange. And that's why I think we will let him go this summer. And any of that money will hopefully be put into buying a really enforcing number 6, like I mentioned earlier. Someone who can not only get on the ball, kind of Rodri style, and make the play tick, getting the ball off the centre halves, as Basuma does when he's at his best on the half turn, but also somebody who is not afraid to put in some sprinty recovery runs to help out his fullbacks when opposition have transition play against us. So I'll be interested to see where Højbjerg goes. Emerson Royal, I said it on Twitter this week, I want his agent. I really do, because he is currently being linked with a move to Saudi for £20 million plus, but also it's being said that Bayern Munich and AC Milan are interested in Emerson Royal. For me, I would take anything over 10 or 15 million pounds. He's a good defender. But he's not good on the ball. He's the least Brazilian player I've ever seen play. And so if he's going to go somewhere and just be asked to defend as a right back, he will do a good job. I was listening to Windy and Bardi on the Extra Inch last night, and they were saying he'd do a great job at somewhere like Everton or Brentford, and I completely agree. But if he can get his move to Bayern or Milan, or the money move to Saudi, good luck to him. And Spurs just need to move on and get in more players who have the attributes to play in the Ange style. It's the Spurs style. To dare is to do. We need players who can play lovely, fast tempo, 1-2 touch football. And unfortunately, that is not Emerson Royal. I love him as a bloke, cult hero, but thank you and good night. I did a video at the back end of last week where I gave the list of players that I thought Spurs should be willing to listen to offers for this summer. And this morning, Paul O'Keefe again has come out and said who the club are willing to apparently listen to offers for. And that list is incredibly similar to what I wrote. Here are the players: Fraser Forster, Gio Lo Celso, Højbjerg, as I mentioned, Joe Rodon, Jed Spence, Sergio Reguilon, Ryan Sessegnon, of course, will be going on a free, Ben Davis, Emerson Royal, Tanguy Ndombele, Brian Hill, and Manor Solomon will all be allowed to leave this summer. I think with some of those, we may even need to rip up the contract. I cannot see Tanguy Ndombele getting a move anywhere. So I think let's just rip up his last year, get him out of the club. He's hardly played even any minutes for Galatasaray. He's going to pick up another winner's medal there. But what an absolute waste of money he's been. And we should have really seen the signs before signing him that he'd been down as low as, I think, the French 2nd or 3rd division only a couple of seasons before. And he'd only really had one good season and a couple of really good Champions League games. That's what we bought him on the back of, and that wasn't enough. But yeah, that is a big list of players who will be allowed to leave. And then on top of that, apparently, if the bids are right, by which I guess it means if a bid is too good to turn down, then we would also be willing to let Richarlison, Oliver Skipp, and Yves Bissouma go too. So it's going to be a fascinating summer. What is that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, potentially 15 players who Tottenham could be willing to let leave. That would leave us with a very small squad, and we're going to need to get players in. As ever with Daniel Levy, it's not likely that we're going to buy 10 players before selling any. So I'm sure that Johan Lange right now is working incredibly hard, along with Fabio Paratici, on his phone all the time to try and get deals done as early as possible. There's going to have to be some interesting negotiating done this summer if Ange's going to get what he wants in terms of the balance of the squad, full of players who can play with the attributes needed to get his football at the top level regularly as well. Consistency next season is going to be absolutely key. Before I leave, obviously I have to talk about this Australia trip. You will have all seen the Spurs players getting on the plane straight after the game at Sheffield yesterday to go off to Australia. I have to say, when I saw some of the social videos from Spurs of the players getting on the plane, I wouldn't have released them, because it struck me, let me know if you agree, but it struck me that those Spurs players were taking the piss. Like, they were kind of, a few of them were getting on the steps of the plane going, yeah, you know, like that. And it was like, I think you're taking the piss out of the fact that you are being made to do this money trip. It is ridiculous. Let me know in the comments, what do you think the money figure must have been for Spurs to accept that game? 3 days after the end of the season, the other side of the world, a lot of those players are going to be playing in the Euros as well, or other tournaments this summer. Absolute madness. Surely it has to be something like £10 million. I can't see why they would do it for less than that. But maybe I'm being pie in the sky. I really don't know. I think it's a terrible look from Spurs, I have to say. Once again, kind of putting their foot in their mouths, making those players do that. It takes away any right we ever have to complain about fixture congestion or schedule problems. And yeah, I just don't know what the money must have been for them to accept that. I think it's completely mad. I also, of course, have to talk. I've left it till the end, so, you know, if you're still watching, I appreciate it, but we have to talk about the fact that Arsenal didn't win the title yesterday. I want to put a different spin on it. Listen, the reality is Arsenal are a great side. As a club, they've been incredibly patient with Mikel Arteta. He had 2 8th-place finishes when he started, and they could easily have sacked him, and a lot of the Arsenal fans were calling for the board to sack him, but they didn't. And as a result, they are reaping the benefits of that patience, and they are a really great side. However, for all the Arsenal fans who are trying to defend the fact that they bottled it, the reality is you didn't bottle it, but neither did Spurs bottle it when they didn't win the league. Neither did Spurs bottle it when Chelsea beat them to the league title under Conte. But your fans loved going on them, and therefore you cannot get bitey, or you cannot get upset that Tottenham fans and other clubs' fans are calling you bottlers now, because you've been top of the league both these last 2 seasons and haven't got it over the line. In fact, Spurs were never top of the league in either the 2 seasons that they didn't win the title, and yet we were called Put the Pressure on FC and Bottlers FC. So if you're going to give it, you just have to take it, and now is your time to take it. I'm sorry to let you know that you're going to have a difficult summer for a while, but you are a great side. Arteta is assembling something very impressive there, and Spurs need to be ready to fight against Arsenal for the title, I think, the season after next, which is when I think Pep will have gone. City might have had their punishment. Klopp obviously has already gone now, and I think it'll be a difficult transition for Arne Slot. Whether he has the personality and the strength to lead a club where politics is so important and public-facing management is so important remains to be seen. And Tottenham need to be kind of where Arsenal were after their 3rd season, in terms of Arteta having kind of 6 transfer windows to get his exact squad that he wants. I need Ange to be ready for that end of next season, beginning of the season after, and then I think we can have a real go at that championship the next season. Finally, thank you for watching and listening to this elongated episode. I just want to let you know what the plans are for the rest of the summer. The channel is going to change to being more like a transfer-based and news-based for the whole Premier League and all of football episodes over this summer. There's not going to be quite enough Spurs news to do daily only Tottenham stuff, so it's going to be a lot of transfer stuff, but of course I will always lead with the Tottenham transfer rumours, always. But it will be other clubs as well. So if you have friends who you think might like this daily content talking about transfer stuff and news going on from the Premier League and beyond this summer, please point them in the direction of this channel. Get them to give me a subscribe. And of course, I'll be talking about the Euros as well, which will be starting in just a few weeks' time. And I think England have a massive chance of winning it this year. I've never felt so confident. And I know a lot of people are like anti-Gareth Southgate, but if you look at all of the international teams who have won the major tournaments in the last kind of decade or so, they've all been pragmatic. All the managers have been pragmatic. And Southgate, he cannot be accused of being anything other than pragmatic, playing a double pivot, and he won't be able to find a way to fit in all of the amazing players we've got going forward, including Bellingham, Foden, Cole Palmer, all of Saka, all of those talents that we've got. He's not going to find a way to put them all in the same team, so there will be complaints heading his way, but I think we can go on a great run, and Harry Kane can lift the Euros for us this summer. Thank you so much for watching. Please do press subscribe if you're not already. And you can become a Spurred On Pro or Patreon member. All the details in the description box. Just £1 a month. And it helps me make this regular content for you. 5th place in the Premier League. Good stuff. Come on, you Spurs.